Life is this simple.
We are living in a world
That is absolutely transparent.
and God is shining through it all the time.
This is not just a fable or a nice story.
It is true.
If we abandon ourselves to God,
And forget ourselves.
we see it sometimes.
And maybe we even see it frequently.
God appears everywhere in everything.
And we cannot be without God.
The only thing is, we need to see it. On page 2 of our bulletin, please join together in our responsive call to confession and commitment written by Chaim Stern. How relevant today. For the sin of silence,
For the sin of ignorance.
for the secret complicity of the neutral,
For the closing of borders.
for the washing of hands,
For the crying of indifference.
for the sin of silence,
For the closing of borders.
for all that was done.
For all that was not done.
Let there be no forgetfulness before the throne of glory,
Let there be remembrance within the human heart.
and let there at last be forgiveness.
When your children of God are free and at peace. Amen. You come and follow me.
Today's first reading is John chapter 20, verses 24 to 29. Now Thomas, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Our second reading is Isaiah chapter 40, verses 1 through 5, and chapter 41, verse 10. "Comfort, comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and proclaim to her that her hard service has been completed, that her sin has been paid for, that she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. A voice of one calling in the wilderness, prepare the way for the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be raised up, every mountain and hill made low. The rough ground shall become level, the rugged places a plain. And the glory of the Lord will be revealed, and all people will see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. The word of the Lord.
May the words of my mouth Amen. I think it takes a lot of faith to engage your doubts. I don't think faith and doubt are opposites. To be filled with faith, you have to be open to doubt. And the life of faithfulness is a joy because your heart's always open to the way God is shaping your personal path in life. The life of doubtfulness is also a joy because your mind is always open to the ways God is showing you what is true about your life, about our life as a community, a nation, a world. You know, Jesus often said, "You've heard it said, but I say to you." That's doubt. Jesus doubted certain outworn false ideas and principles that he had been taught. And he doubted, and he doubted, and he doubted until he saw through what he was doubting into a deeper, truer reality in which he could have faith. Jesus is the smartest truth-seeking person in the Bible. And he was smart enough to know that faith is acquired as a result of a life of persistent doubt. Jesus doubted that the death penalty was appropriate for adultery. Jesus doubted that persons with mental health illnesses should be chained to rocks in cemeteries. Jesus doubted the wisdom of peaceful complacency in the face of social evil. And he suggested instead peaceful, provocative ways to revolt. Jesus doubted that you could love God and money at the same time and not experience some confusion as to what to give your heart to. Jesus doubted whether all the bad things that happen in life are caused by evil, and he suggested instead that ignorance and blundering lay at the root of much of what we call evil. Even in the face of torment perpetrated upon his own body, he said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." In true adherence to Jesus-style thinking, this disciple Thomas was not rejected for doubting Jesus' resurrection. Thomas was simply encouraged to examine his doubts. Walk around them a little bit. Walk inside them a while. Examine them. Thomas was encouraged to consider that battle scars ought to be given considerable weight in all matters of decision. Wounded healers are preferred over unwounded healers. Thomas was encouraged to trust in the value of invisible realities over the visible ones. Our culture, for instance, says the great Marcus Borg values achievement, acquisitiveness, and attractiveness. Jesus-style thinking means not trusting in what our culture values the most. Instead, trust the values of invisible beauty over visible attractiveness, invisible learning skills over visible achievement tests. invisible generosity over the visible trappings of acquisitiveness. Thomas was inspired to see that there are things death cannot destroy. There are even things death can create. A risen Christ from a crucified Christ, it takes faith to doubt. But it also is true that it takes doubt to have faith. Persistent doubt leads to perfect faith. In other words, go ahead and doubt. And doubt and doubt until you have no more reason to doubt. Go ahead and doubt God. Go ahead. Doubt and doubt and doubt until you find something about God which you have no reason to doubt. Now you've found what's called the near end of God. It's as if you're on an ocean beach, standing there in the sand, as the tide rolls over your feet, the water, that little bit of water spreading over your feet, that's the near end of God. And in one sense, Jesus is the near end of God. Jesus is what and who God sounds like, acts like, thinks like, suffers like, enjoys life like as a human being. The far end of God is like the ocean, far beyond the beach. You have a lot more doubting to do as you get into a boat and begin to sail into the ocean. How far can I go? Will the wind be right? Are there storms coming? Do I have enough food and water? Keep doubting. The ocean will come to you. The far end of God. The one whose beauty permeates the immense infinite universe. The one whose love is going everywhere. Right now. The unnamed stupendous. Now, Thomas had some questions about all this. That's good, Thomas. That's excellent, Thomasina. Ask questions about God. The more questions you ask about God, the larger your concept of God will become. Think of it as you might think about one of the works of art in the exhibit we opened here Friday night. Take a look around. The fellowship room and the chapel. Look at these works in the sanctuary again. Find one that you're seeing for the first time. Stand in front of it. Start asking questions about it. Ask a question directly to the person or being or idea in a certain work. Go look at one of the works that express feelings about racism. Ask, why is white hatred of black people so widespread? What can I do as a spiritual, real-time, real-life response to the hate crime of a young white man killing 10 black people in a grocery store in Buffalo? The more questions you ask about a work, the larger your concept of that work and subject will become. You can do the same thing with all of these works. As you ask questions about one, you learn who created it, with what kind of materials, what the subject is, what the artist might be trying to communicate. In fact, sometime soon, Stan Morgan and I are going to do a dialogue sermon about this exhibit. If you really focus on it, it's pretty stunning. Now, this questioning process also works when it comes to asking questions about God, or even asking questions directly to God. For instance, you know that in the book of Job, there's a kind of a prologue at the beginning of the book in which the devil comes walking along and suggests to God that Job only believes in God as long as his life is good and happy. And that if the devil were to introduce to Job misery, God wouldn't matter to him anymore. Now, I doubt, there's that word again, I doubt that this prologue is really a part of the book of Job. It's a Jewish folk tale that was added in to provide some initial perspective on this long Hebrew language poem. And I also doubt that Job is only a poem. I think it's an ancient stage play with characters, a setting, a story, character development, and a dramatic conflict. Now, in my upcoming stage play, Bottle of Fire, I've written a brief monologue by Carmenita, who is a creative, dynamic, African-American Pentecostal minister. And the monologue takes place in a moment of explosive discovery. And in this monologue, Carmenita updates the Jewish folktale in Job in an expression of doubt. Not doubt about God's existence, doubt about God's effectiveness. Kind of like Elie Wiesel and other Jewish people and writers who put God on trial over the Holocaust. If God's in control of things, how did this happen? Where is God? One person cries out as a person trying to escape a concentration camp is shot dead climbing a barbed wire fence. God's on that barbed wire fence, someone else replies. Now, polls in our nation, they reveal that a lot of people believe in God. But the same polls also reveal that a lot of them don't trust God to act or do anything. And as a result, we decline to join God in acting. Or we're just apathetic about it. So if we don't ask questions and express our doubts about God, our concept of God will never grow. In fact, in the face of a changing world and our changing lives, even a changing understanding of the universe, our concept of God will shrink if we don't keep asking questions. And that's why I think some people come to think of God as dead. You know, without a process of continuing questioning and doubt, our concept of God becomes lifeless, useless. So you see, Thomas is remembered and celebrated in the Gospel of John and across the span of history because by doubting, Thomas actually contributed to keeping the faith of Jesus alive. Now, one cautionary note I would make about doubt is rather subtle, but it's still real. Doubt is sometimes activated by fear. Fear may sometimes be the driving energy in your doubts. For example, in the gospel message of Jesus' crucifixion and his resurrection, and in some of the birth narratives also, when angels appear, people are described as being afraid, or even very afraid. And at the very end of the illuminated Good Friday service, there's a Caravaggio painting of the burial of Jesus. And one of the people present at the burial is looking up in the air with his arms raised as if to say, "What's going to happen to me?" That's doubt driven by fear. What's going to happen to me? Well, we're all subject to that kind of paralyzing doubt. The real question at that fearful moment is not what's going to happen to me, but what is being asked of me. Why not become an alchemist of your soul by turning your fear into curiosity? Spiritual alchemy? So instead of surrendering to fear, turn the problem into a mission to become curious. What's being asked of me? Where's this going? Where am I going? What does my life want to become? Become curious about your own faith and your own spiritual experience. After all, this is a matter for all of us to address, for we are not merely physical beings having a temporary spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a temporary physical experience. So I urge you to be curious about God, curious about Jesus and the way he thought and lived. Now you're joining the company of the greatest doubters. But remember, a great doubter must acquire a deep faith in order to persist in doubting. Will you be one of the great doubters who becomes a person of deepening faithfulness? I'm going to travel to the conclusion here with a story. At an ordination examination in a presbytery that I was a member of in Ohio, the candidate was asked, as is usual, to express and describe their beliefs. And after doing so, a minister in the meeting stood up and asked, "You've told us everything you believe. Now, would you please tell us something you do not believe?" What a great question. Tell us about your deepest doubts. How would you answer? I think I would answer today, I don't believe parents of transgender young people should be punished for child abuse as a Texas law proposes. I don't believe, as a hymn we sang last week on Mother's Day expressed, that woman truth for centuries hidden, unsung, unwritten, unheard, derided, and forbidden, I don't believe that truth should be overruled by men, judges, or any institution that seeks the control of women's bodies and decisions. I doubt that we have to worry about whether women love babies and even love them enough not to have them under painful, problematic circumstances. I doubt that young black high school student athletes should have their hair supervised by school authorities. I doubt. We doubt. You doubt. Live your questions, said the poet Rilke. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign language. Go ahead and doubt, Thomas. You have heard it said, but I say to you, said Jesus, doubt is not the opposite of faith. To be filled with faith, be open to doubt. Amen. Good morning, church. Welcome to all of you who are here in person today and all who are following us on the live stream. Thanks again to Deanna Capps and Martine Roselle for making it possible for people to be with us who are not here in person. Welcome again, Roy Fester. Glad you have a roof over your head now. Want to also welcome someone who just came in a few minutes ago, Dwaynette, who's helped out with the lunches here during the week. Welcome, Dwaynette Jackson. We got two musical events coming up this week. On Friday at noontime is one of the Westport Center for the Arts concerts. I'll call her the magical person, Lyra Farrago, who has been managing the series for a number of years now and has just done a fabulous job, is performing along with her husband, Robert Farrago, at 12 noon this Friday. Free concert. Always we accept donations. Then there's a concert Friday night. It's an organ concert. It's Bach, right? The music is Bach, and it's a benefit concert for a youth, young people, children's music program in Kansas City, Kansas. So come. What time is that one? 7 o'clock. All right. Well, you would know. You made it. You helped make it that way. Great. Perfect for Bach. The art exhibit is obviously viewable today, and we're keeping it open. We keep it open during office hours during the week from 10 to 4. You know, I think that we're going to leave this up for a while. And Stan and I were talking yesterday about one thing we might do. We even heard somebody in a dialogue yesterday who was interested in this idea, that we might have some groups come in and have somebody sort of act as an interpreter of the art, if they make an appointment. I think that would be a way to not only open up the art to other people, but it helps to understand some of these works, like where they came from inside the artist. Lastly, yesterday morning, Micah Rose Emerson and I had another Zoom dialogue with a number of people, and the subject for the dialogue was, why do so many white people hate black people? That was yesterday morning at 10 o'clock. And this was an engaging dialogue amongst the people who participated. And at this particular dialogue, yesterday, this is our 5th one, at this particular dialogue, there were definitely a lot more black people involved in the dialogue than there were white people, which was different than some of the previous dialogues. Because of what happened in Buffalo yesterday, Mike and I have decided to have an emergency dialogue on Wednesday night by Zoom in light of what happened to address the same subject. So if you're interested, let me know, and Micah will send the Zoom link for that dialogue. They're 75 minutes from 7 to 8:15 p.m. This one will be. Thank you for being here today. Oh, I should also welcome Peter. Peter, good to have you with us. Go ahead.
That guest tenor actually exists, but sadly, he's still testing positive for COVID, so he's not going to be able to be with us until mid-June, but he's still going to come visit us but just so you know. You get me during the offertory, sorry.
Holiest in the light and be
worship services. Let us bow our heads and lift our hearts for our morning Matthew 25 prayer, rooted in Jesus' thoughts in Matthew 25 about I was hungry and you fed me, or I was hungry and you did not feed me. I was in need of a shower and you gave me one. My clothes hadn't been cleaned in some time and you washed them, dried them, sorted them. I had no shoes and you gave me a pair. I was lonely and you spent time talking with me. I was hungry and I was thirsty and you gave me food and water. Bernie and his wife, Reva's friend, who passed.
Our friend struggling with COVID.
Paul Messler. I was a family member, a friend, a neighbor of a Buffalo murder victim, and you committed to anti-racism. I was a woman experiencing a problem pregnancy, and you honored my decisions. I was a Ukrainian refugee family, and you welcomed me. I was Kyiv, Mariupol, Odessa, and you wouldn't look away. I was Zelensky, and you kept praying for me. Jim Turner. Bart. My name was Matthew Shepard, and you never forgot me. My name was Stephen Thomas, and you honored me. I was LGBTQ in Florida facing Don't Say Gay, and you said, that ain't right. I was transgender anywhere, and you stood up for me. Thomas family, Tom Blake and Steve. All of Nate's friends, the spirit of Nate. I was afraid, and you kept talking me through it. I was confused, and you helped me to stand in my center. I was going through cancer treatments, and you encouraged me. I was being bullied, and you helped me find my power. I was thinking some stinking thinking, and you waited till I was ready to recover. Brooke and her family. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. continue to give your offerings in the plates at the back of the church. Wow. If you'll turn to the last page in this morning's bulletin, we dedicate our offerings through this responsive prayer, which was adapted from a writing by Dr. King. Oh boy, human progress is neither automatic. Every step toward the goal of justice
requires sacrifice
suffering,
and struggle,
the tireless exertions
and passionate concern
of dedicated individuals.
Let us become dedicated by what we give
Who we become.
and the work we are willing to do.
Amen. This is your insert.
Study
darkness. Through darkness, we find light. A shadow says, light is here. We're all just walking each other home. Our work is to love people in such a way that the people we love feel free. Amen.